Amelia, can you bring the spoons, dear? Susan's voice rang out, light and cheerful. Amelia walked over quietly, took the cutlery, and began placing it beside the plates. The aroma of the food filled the room, warm and rich, but it didn't feel like home. Nothing had since her mother left. That night, they ate together at the dining table. Thomas smiling too much, Susan chatting about the wedding plans, and Amelia chewing slowly, watching both of them. Days passed, and the house began to shift. Susan rearranged things, moved the chair by the window, put up new curtains, and swapped out the photo frames. The one of Amanda, Amelia's mother, disappeared from the center table. Amelia found it later in a drawer. She didn't say anything. She simply took it and placed it on the shelf in her room, hidden behind her school books. Then came the calls. Late at night, Susan would step out to the balcony, phone pressed to her ear, voice hushed. Once, Amelia passed by the door and heard her say something that made her stop walking. "Don't worry. After the wedding, everything will fall into place. He has no idea." Susan laughed softly and ended the call. Amelia stood frozen for a moment. Her heart pounded. Who was Susan talking to? And what did she mean by "he has no idea"? From that night on, Amelia began to listen more carefully. She paid attention to the things Susan said when she thought no one was around. And slowly, pieces started falling into place. The sneaky messages, the conversations cut short when Thomas walked into the room, the expensive shoes Susan hid in the back of the closet with tags still on them, paid for no doubt by her father. Amelia didn't sleep much the night before the wedding. She stared at the ceiling, holding the photo of her mother in one hand and the ring box in the other. Her chest felt heavy again. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. The next morning, she dressed in her yellow gown. She combed her hair, tied the white beads, and wore the small chain her mother had given her on her 7th birthday. Then she picked up the rings and followed her father to the church. Now, standing at the altar, Amelia's mind flashed back to those whispers, those lies wrapped in sweet smiles. The pastor began to speak. Everyone watched, smiles wide, hearts full. But Amelia couldn't let it happen. Her hands trembled. Her voice caught in her throat. But she stepped forward. Her father turned, surprised. Susan blinked, confused. Amelia raised the ring case high. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice clear and small but strong. "We can't do this." A hush fell. The choir stopped. Cameras dropped. Eyes widened. Thomas looked at her stunned. "What do you mean, Amelia?" he asked gently. She took a deep breath. "I heard her. She's lying to you. She doesn't love you, Daddy. She's using you." Gasps echoed through the church. Susan stepped forward, her face stiff. "Amelia, that's not true." "Yes, it is," Amelia said, cutting her off. "You said it on the phone. You said he has no idea. But I heard you." "I know." Susan's expression cracked. Her soft smile faded. For a moment, the mask slipped, and everyone saw it. Thomas looked between them, his face pale. "Is that true, Susan?" She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Silence screamed louder than any words. And just like that, the wedding was no longer a celebration. It was a reckoning. Amelia stood quietly, tears forming in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. Her fingers still clutched the ring box. She had done what she had to. Not for herself, but for her father. For her mother. For the truth. And in that quiet, heavy moment, Thomas stepped back from Susan and knelt before his daughter. "You saved me," he whispered. "Just like your mother would have." The church was silent, but something powerful had happened. Because of the bravery of one small girl who refused to be silent halfway to the kitchen, Amelia heard something. Soft murmurs. Not from the living room or Thomas's room, but from the guest room, the one Susan sometimes used when she claimed she needed space. The door was slightly open. Light spilled onto the hallway like a secret trying to escape. Amelia paused, her fingers tightening around the notebook. Inside, Susan was pacing slowly, phone pressed to her ear. Her voice was low but sharp. "I told you, just a few more days. Once we're married, the money's mine. He trusts me completely. No, he won't suspect a thing." Amelia's heart stopped. Her breath caught. She didn't mean to listen, but her feet stayed rooted in place. Her mother's necklace, which she had tied around her wrist that night, suddenly felt heavy. She leaned closer, barely breathing. Susan continued, her tone colder now. "That little girl? Don't worry about her. She's quiet. Too soft. She won't be a problem." Amelia's fingers curled into fists. She stepped back slowly, careful not to make a sound. Her chest was pounding, her legs unsteady, but she didn't drop the notebook. She turned and hurried down the hall to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and stood there staring into it as the truth settled in like dust after a storm. Susan didn't love her father. She didn't care. It was all a plan. A lie. Amelia didn't sleep the rest of the night. She lay still, eyes open in the dark, thinking of everything. Every fake smile, every cold glance, every forced laugh. It all made sense now. She wanted to scream, but the walls were too thick. She wanted to run, but her feet wouldn't move. So she waited. Waited for morning. Waited for proof. Waited for the right moment. The wedding day came quickly. The house buzzed with noise and movement. Laughter in the hall, fabric rustling, the clatter of dishes in the kitchen. Guests arrived, songs played on the speaker, the scent of flowers and starch filled the air. Thomas was glowing, standing tall in his white agbada. Neighbors clapped his shoulder, women hugged Susan, people smiled and whispered blessings. Amelia stood quietly in her yellow dress, holding the ring box tightly in both hands. Her face was calm, but inside, her mind was racing. She hadn't told anyone. Not Uncle Samson. Not her teacher. Not even the neighbors she sometimes greeted with quiet waves. This was her moment. Hers alone. When they reached the church, she walked behind Thomas, her steps small but steady. The building was bright, the choir in full voice, petals scattered along the aisle. Susan entered like a queen, glowing in her gown, veil pinned perfectly. She smiled as she walked, at the guests, at the cameras, at Thomas. But Amelia didn't smile. She watched. Watched every blink, every move, every carefully painted expression on Susan's face. As the ceremony began, Amelia stood near the altar, the ring box clutched tightly against her chest. The pastor welcomed everyone, began his words. Laughter rippled, whispers danced between pews. Thomas looked peaceful, finally at rest. But Amelia couldn't stay silent. She took one step forward, then another. Her hands trembled, but she held on. Her voice was soft but cut through the room like lightning. "I'm sorry. We can't do this." And in that moment, the entire church froze. Her feet felt like they were planted in ice, and her mouth had gone dry. But Amelia stood still, Her hands locked around the ring case like it was her only anchor. All eyes were on the couple at the altar, but hers were fixed on Susan. She watched everything. The way Susan tilted her head just enough to seem delicate. How her hand brushed against Thomas's like it belonged there. Her smile was dazzling, but Amelia knew it wasn't real. It was the same smile she wore when she lied, the one that disappeared the second Thomas looked away. The pastor's voice rang through the hall, calm and full of joy. "Today we join two souls," he began. Amelia barely heard him. Her fingers pressed into the small box. The secret note inside was her shield now, her proof, her warning. She glanced at her father. He looked so happy. That smile, the one he hadn't worn in years, spread across his face like sunlight. But he didn't know. He didn't see what she saw. And if she didn't speak now, if she let this moment pass, it might be too late. The pastor turned to Thomas. "Do you, Thomas Chukwuma, take this woman?" Thomas responded, strong and certain. "I do." The guests clapped softly. Cameras clicked. Then the pastor turned to Susan. Amelia's heartbeat quickened. "Do you, Susan Ophir, take this man?" "I do," she said sweetly, her eyes never leaving Thomas. The pastor smiled. "May we now have the rings?" Amelia stepped forward. The church fell silent as she moved. Each step felt heavy. Each second stretched. Her small shoes tapped against the polished tiles. Her heart pounded against her chest like a drum, loud and fast. She reached the pastor, lifted the ring box, and then paused. Her hands trembled. Her eyes locked on her father's. "I'm sorry," she whispered, barely loud enough for the microphone, "but I can't give you this." The pastor blinked. Thomas's brows furrowed. The crowd shifted, confused murmurs starting to stir. Susan's smile faltered for a split second. "What are you doing?" Thomas asked gently, confused but not yet alarmed. Amelia turned to the crowd. Her voice cracked, but she didn't stop. "I know this isn't part of the wedding, but I need to say something. Please." She turned back to her father. "Daddy, she's lying to you." The church gasped. Thomas stepped closer, trying to lower his voice. "Amelia, not now." "She's lying," Amelia repeated, louder this time. Her eyes welled with tears, but she stood tall. "She's not who you think she is." "She doesn't love you." Susan's face froze. Then slowly, she laughed. "She's just nervous," she said to the guests, waving her hand like it was nothing. "Kids." "No!" Amelia shouted, her voice clear now. "She's planning to hurt you. I heard her. She was on the phone. She has a file with your insurance. She said once you're out of the picture, she and someone named Martins would disappear together." The room erupted. Gasps, whispers, confusion. Thomas looked stunned. "What are you saying?" Amelia stepped closer, opened the ring box, and pulled out the folded paper inside. "I wrote it down. I saw everything on her laptop. There's a plan. A fake honeymoon. A boat. She wants it to look like an accident." Susan's eyes went wide. "That's enough." "No," Amelia said firmly, voice shaking but sure. "You hit me when no one was around. You called me useless. You smiled in public and hurt me in private. And now you're trying to hurt him." Uncle Samson rose from the front pew. "Wait, what's going on here?" Susan took a step back. "She's lying. She's making all this up because she doesn't want me around." Thomas looked from Amelia to Susan. Then back again. Amelia unfolded the paper, handed it to her father. "Please, just read it." He took it with trembling hands. Silence. Then his face changed. His eyes scanned the page, his lips parting as he read the words written in a child's careful hand. Words that should never have had to be written. He looked at Susan, then at the box she had kept locked away in his home. "Susan," he said slowly, voice low, "is this true?" She didn't answer. Because now, everyone was looking, and her mask had finally cracked. The pastor took a step back. Ushers moved quietly toward the front. Susan tried to speak, but nothing came out. Thomas reached for his daughter, kneeling as he pulled her into his arms. He held her close, tightly, like something precious he'd nearly lost. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I didn't see it. I didn't know." Amelia clung to him, tears finally falling, not out of fear, but because it was over. She had spoken. She had saved him. And in that quiet moment, in front of hundreds of people, a little girl's truth shone brighter than the lights, louder than the music, stronger than any vow spoken that day. The pastor's voice echoed gently through the hall. "Marriage is a sacred covenant." His words lingered in the air, washing over the gathered guests like a soft tide. But Amelia wasn't listening. Her eyes were locked on Susan, her hands, her smile, her glance that kept darting around as if checking to see if someone had caught on. Amelia's heart beat faster, the rhythm pulsing beneath her ribs. She could feel her mother's necklace resting on her chest. "Be brave," she whispered to herself. Then it came. Pastor Moses lifted his hand slightly, voice steady and clear. "If anyone knows a reason why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now or forever hold your peace." The silence was thick. One breath. Two. Amelia stepped forward, the ring box trembling in her hands. "Daddy," she said, her voice cracking, but loud enough for all to hear. "Please don't marry her. She wants to hurt you." A wave of gasps swept through the hall. Chairs shifted. Phones lowered. A woman in the back clutched her chest. "Wonders shall never end." Susan stiffened. Thomas stared, eyes wide, voice caught in his throat. "Amelia," he whispered, stepping forward. "What did you just say?" Amelia's cheeks flushed with heat, but she didn't move back. She held the ring box tighter. "I heard her. I saw it. The documents. The messages. She's not who she says she is. Please believe me." A stillness fell. Susan didn't blink. Her smile had vanished. For a moment, she didn't move. Then the silence cracked. Gasps turned into murmurs, rippling down the rows like waves. Whispers grew louder. "Did she say, kill? God forbid. She must be mistaken." Amelia stood firm, her voice clearer now. "She wants to hurt my daddy. I saw her computer. I heard her talking on the phone. Her name isn't even Susan." Thomas turned to his bride, stunned. "What's she talking about?" Susan's expression softened. Too quickly. "She's confused," she said, her tone sugar-coated. "She's still grieving her mother. This has all happened so fast. She's scared. That's all." Some nodded sympathetically. But not everyone. Amelia took a breath. "She talks to a man named Martins. They planned this. The insurance. The accident. I saw pictures. I saw everything." Susan's composure wavered. Her fingers twitched. Then before she could recover, a deep voice rang from the third row. "I believe her." Heads turned. It was Uncle Samson. He stood slowly, his face serious, eyes locked on Thomas. "That girl used to laugh, used to draw, run around this place. But lately, she's been fading. Sad. Quiet. Something wasn't right. And now I see it." Susan's head snapped toward him, her face stiff. Thomas glanced between his daughter, his friend, and the woman he had nearly married. The truth was sinking in, each word heavier than the last. "Please, Daddy," Amelia whispered. "I'm not lying. I wouldn't lie to you." The air was thick with silence again, pressing down like a storm about to break. All eyes were on Thomas. And then, Susan's mask shattered. Her voice rose into a shriek, piercing the silence. "You stupid girl. You little brat. You've ruined everything." The room erupted. A woman gasped. Another covered her mouth. "I said it," someone whispered. There was something off about her. Pastor Moses stepped back, gripping his Bible tighter, his face pale with shock. Thomas stood still like he'd been struck. "You," he began, voice barely a whisper. "How didn't I see it?" Susan turned to him, eyes wild now. "Thomas. Wait. I was upset. She's lying." "Enough," he said. "No anger. Just heartbreak. This wedding is over." Gasps echoed once more. A single clap broke out somewhere in the back. Someone whispered, "Thank God." Susan's eyes darted around, frantic. Her veil drooped to the side, mascara streaking down her cheeks. She spun toward the exit and ran, her heels loud against the polished floor. She shoved past the stunned ushers and burst through the doors, out into the light, disappearing into the street. Inside, no one moved. Thomas turned to his daughter. She was still holding the ring box. Her eyes shimmered, but her posture stayed strong. He dropped to his knees in front of her, voice trembling. "I'm so sorry. I should have believed you. You saved me." She didn't speak. She just wrapped her arms around him. Outside, Susan, or rather Sarah, ran in a panic. Horns honked as she dashed across the road, her dress trailing like a ghost. People stared. A phone camera blinked red. Back inside, Thomas stood and turned to the pastor. "Call the police." Pastor Moses pulled out his phone at once. "Yes, officer. We have a situation." Less than half an hour later, 2 officers arrived. Amelia and her father sat in a quiet room near the church office. She held her notebook close. Officer Namdi listened carefully, nodding as Amelia spoke. Her voice was steady now. She wasn't honest about anything. She and a man named Martins planned it all. "I heard her. I saw their chats. The insurance." Thomas looked down, regret etched deep across his face. "I didn't listen. I wanted to believe in love again. And I nearly let that blind me." Amelia flipped through her notebook, stopping at a page. She showed them a sketch, a face with a scar, curly hair, and tired eyes. "This is Martin's. I saw his photos on her laptop." The officers exchanged glances. "We'll need that computer," one of them said. Thomas nodded. "It's at the house." By evening, they had the laptop. Inside it, everything Amelia described was there. The insurance plan, the secret bookings, chats with Martins, even fake IDs. Then came the final piece. Officer Namdi returned to the station. "We've got him," he said. "Martins. He was trying to board a bus to Calabar. He had a fake passport, cash, and a bag. He's in custody, and he's already talking. Thomas looked at his daughter, then lowered his head. He couldn't speak. Amelia gently leaned against him. She didn't feel victorious. She just felt relieved. The next day, they returned to the station. In a quiet room, Officer Namdi sat across from them. His file open, his face serious. "She confessed," he said. "Her real name is Sarah Adams. One of many aliases. She and Martins have been conning people for years. Wealthy widowers. Men with kids. She comes in, pretends to care, and when they marry..." He stopped. The next part didn't need explaining. Thomas murmured, "The accident. The boat." Namdi nodded. "She'd vanish. With the money." Thomas's shoulders slumped. "How could I let this happen?" Amelia slipped her hand into his. "You didn't know," she said softly. "But I saw it. I stopped it. We're okay now." He looked at her, really looked, and saw not a scared little girl, but someone brave, someone who saved him. Tears welled, but this time, they were filled with gratitude. Back at home, the house felt different. Not just quieter. Safer. Sarah was gone. Thomas stood in the living room, staring out the window. "I was blind," he whispered. Uncle Samson tightened a screw into the wall. "You didn't lose her," he said gently. "She saved you. That girl, she's light." Thomas nodded, emotion heavy in his chest. In her room, Amelia pulled out her old notebook. She tore one final drawing from it. Her mother in yellow, holding a little girl's hand. She pinned it to the wall, climbed under the covers, and for the first time in months, slept without fear. A year passed. The day was quiet, warm, and slow, the kind of peace that asked nothing but to be felt. Thomas and Amelia sat by the river, sharing plantain and soft yam. "This is the best meal of the year," he said, grinning. They laughed together. Then Thomas's phone buzzed. He answered, listened, nodded. "That was Uncle Samson," he said. Amelia tilted her head. "Was it to her?" Thomas nodded. "She tried to leave the country. But they caught her. She's in custody. It's over." Amelia leaned into him, resting her head on his arm. They sat in silence, letting it settle. After a while, he looked down at her. "You protected me. Your mom, she'd be proud." Amelia smiled softly, touching the necklace around her neck. "We protected each other," she said. And together, they watched the river, the storm behind them, the sunlight ahead.